may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, I know this is always the video that y'all are waiting for every single week. We got so many submissions this week, so I'm very sorry if I was unable to get to your team. You can always come by the live stream tonight and I'll be able to try to answer any question that you have. We'll be live streaming tonight and tomorrow morning as well. Y'all know we live stream and answer more questions than any other fantasy football channel on YouTube. Regardless, let's not spend too much time talking about that. Let's just get into it because I'm trying to break down as many of these teams as possible. And instead of going through and offering you trade suggestions, I think we're going to skip that part because a lot of y'all are already past your trade deadlines. We are just going to go through and offer you start-sit decisions. And on top of that, if I think you should be making any moves at the bottom of your roster on the waiver wire. Okay, so let's get into it with our first team, which is led off with Tom Brady at quarterback. Has the running back room of Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara. And then if you look at the bench, we see some more running backs like a Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor was actually someone I was very excited about this week, given the matchup. But of course, now that he's on the COVID list, can't plan on starting Jonathan Taylor right now. And then also on the bench, you have a Damian Harris and a Kalen Ballage. I'll say both with Damian Harris and Kalen Ballage, I'm going to be a lot lower on them going forward than I have been the past few weeks. We know with Kalen Ballage, obviously Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson have been on the short-term IR, which has vaulted up Kalen Ballage and has allowed him to get all of those touches in Los Angeles. And with Damian Harris, yes, Rex Burkhead is now not in New England. Rex Burkhead is now done for the year. But we are looking at Sony Michel coming back, and I think Sony Michel is going to eat into some of the Damian Harris carries, where Damian Harris is still going to be the starting running back, but I don't know if he's going to get enough usage where we can go out there and confidently rely on him being a running back 2 every single week. So now let's go over to your wide receiver position real quick. In your starting lineup, you have Keenan Allen and Will Fuller. Congrats on starting Will Fuller, man. Also, Keenan Allen is going to be an elite option rest of season. My current wide receiver 2 rest of season based on his schedule, based on him being the wide receiver 2 in points per game, only behind Davante Adams when Justin Herbert has been his quarterback. Also, at the flex, you have Deontay Johnson. On the bench, you have Justin Jefferson, you have Antonio Brown, and Allen Robinson. And I'll say real quick, I know a lot of y'all are worried about Justin Jefferson without Adam Thielen, quote-unquote, taking the defensive attention away. No, guys, Justin Jefferson has operated as the wide receiver 1 for the Minnesota Vikings over the past few weeks, where he's not necessarily seeing that number 1 wide receiver role in terms of the targets in the red zone, in terms of the touchdowns on the offense. But if you look at the air yards, if you look at where the defensive attention has been going, they have already been treating Justin Jefferson like that number 1 wide receiver. So I think that Justin Jefferson now is going to see a small bump up in his touchdown equity with no Adam Thielen. And honestly, Justin Jefferson is a top 5 wide receiver option for me this week, no question. I know a lot of people are worried about the Carolina Panthers passing defense. Personally, I am not. I mean, he's not going up against Jalen Ramsey. He is completely fine. Lock in Justin Jefferson as a top 5 wide receiver. I would take Deontay Johnson out of the lineup to get Justin Jefferson in. This is also going to be another theme of Week 12 where I really don't want to have any Pittsburgh Steelers or Baltimore Ravens in our starting lineup at this point. All right, so now let's go down to your tight end position where you have Noah Fant. You also have George Kittle on the IR. Now, this is clearly just a smash spot. Noah Fant is a top 6 tight end for me rest of season. George Kittle is going to be that elite option if he can ever make it back from IR. So here at tight end, I don't think you need to make any changes. And honestly, on this roster, with the way you have it constructed, I really like the construction in terms of the balance at every single position. So I'm not going to recommend you making any waiver wire moves. I think that we're actually going to grade this roster probably as, I want to say an A-. The only thing is you need that elite running back 2 production, which we don't think you're going to get from the combination of Kareem Hunt and Jonathan Taylor. But everywhere else on this roster, it is absolutely fantastic. So I think it has to be an A-. All right, so now let's get to our second team, which has Patrick Mahomes in here at quarterback. At wide receiver, you have DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley. And congrats, you had the best play that we're ever going to see in Week 12. Antonio Gibson in at your running back spot with Josh Jacobs in a great matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. I know that the Atlanta Falcons have limited a little bit the opposing running back scoring so far in 2020, but that has not been based on the defensive strength. That's just been based on the fact that the Atlanta Falcons have put up points on the board and really get into shootouts with these other teams, where really we don't see the other offense be allowed to run the ball 30 times a game. I think that we're actually going to see Josh Jacobs be a complete smash this week with possibly no Julio Jones for the Atlanta Falcons. Their offense is going to be severely limited. And then at your flex spot, you have David Montgomery. And yes, guys, I don't know how many times I have to say this. David Montgomery is one of the worst starting running backs in the entire NFL. This is why I did not draft David Montgomery in a single league. This is why I told y'all to avoid drafting him in 2020. He has no athleticism. He has no explosion. Literally, in college, he had, I want to say, over 600 carries, and he did not score a single touchdown outside the red zone. That shows you how limited David Montgomery is and what we're going to be seeing from his big play ability. But here, it does not matter. He has a fantastic matchup against the Green Bay Packers, and ever since Tariq Cohen has left this offense, he's getting one of the largest workloads in the entire NFL. So it really doesn't matter how bad we think that David Montgomery is. When he's seeing that type of usage, you're going to have to play him. Love him at the flex spot. And now if we go to your bench, you have a lot of guys here with a ton of upside. You have Michael Pittman, you have Rob Gronkowski, you have T. Higgins, you have DJ Moore, and Ronald Jones. Now here's the one suggestion that I would look to make on this team. I would look to take out Rob Gronkowski from your bench, and I'd look to put him in over Mike Gesicki at your tight end spot. I know that Mike Gesicki has a great matchup against the New York Jets, but still Gesicki has been extremely volatile so far in 2020. We know that the other tight ends on that offense are also getting their routes run. They're also getting targeted in the offense. So here, I think that I would much prefer just having Rob Gronkowski in there. But outside of that, really love this roster, especially given the fact that you have that elite quarterback option. Antonio Gibson is full on breaking out right now. And then you have some upside on your bench. So here, I think that we are just going to have to end up giving this roster a B+. What's going to be really holding this team back is just going to be the tight end spot and the flex spot. But I think that this team does have the upside with Antonio Gibson breaking out to be near the very top of your league. All right, so now pulling up our last team. This is going to be led off with Josh Allen in there at quarterback. You have no quarterback on the bench, which honestly I am completely fine with. And I highly recommend for a lot of teams that have that elite option at quarterback, that quarterback that's going to give you that great passing volume combined with the rushing equity in his offense. I think those quarterbacks tend to be matchup proof, and that's what we're seeing with Josh Allen. So completely fine there. And now going in at running back, we have Miles Sanders and Mike Davis currently in your starting lineup. So clearly after this week, we're going to have to be looking for a long-term answer other than Mike Davis at that running back 2 spot. But on your bench, what's great is you have Cam Akers, Chase Edmonds, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, Raheem Mostert. So you are completely covered with that running back 2 spot. I will say with Miles Sanders, y'all know that's a running back that I've been extremely high on as of late, just because we are expecting that Philadelphia Eagles offense to improve as their offensive line got healthy, as they got more weapons on the outside. But actually, Lane Johnson just announced that he was done for the season. So I think we are going to have to pull back our expectations just slightly with a Miles Sanders, but still love him as a running back 1. And now at wide receiver, you have Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs, Robert Woods in at your flex, and then on your bench, you have Amari Cooper and Jalen Reagor. Another situation where I really like the combination of floor and ceiling that you have with this group, where you have the floor with the guys that you know are going to be able to get you those targets every single week in the Terry McLaurin, Stephon Diggs, and Robert Woods, but you have some players on your bench that could pop off and really provide you that top-end production later on in the season. Someone like a Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor, guys, is a full-on breakout candidate this week against the Seattle Seahawks. He's been the wide receiver 1 for Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles so far when he's been healthy this season. Yes, Carson Wentz has looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the entire NFL, which has really caused Jalen Reagor to be a little bit disappointing. But I think as he continues to improve, we are going to be able to see Jalen Reagor step up into that wide receiver 2 role in fantasy. Now, if we go down to your tight end spot, you have Hunter Henry in right now. If we look at your bench, you don't have any other tight ends. Honestly, this is not something that's too bad in my opinion, because you use those other bench spots on high upside players, someone like a Cam Akers, where if we saw a Darrell Henderson injury, I think that Cam Akers could be a top 12 running back in fantasy, very similar to a Chase Edmonds, where if we saw a Kenyon Drake injury, Chase Edmonds would vault up to the very top. So when you're using your roster spots on players that have that ceiling, I'm fine not rostering a second tight end if you can go out there and if you can just find an option off the waiver wire if we get an injury to Hunter Henry. So I'm completely fine there. I think the only thing I would recommend on this roster is to actually take out Mike Davis against the Minnesota Vikings and put in David Montgomery against the Green Bay Packers. Yes, Montgomery, very bad running back. One of the worst running backs in the entire NFL. But here, he's going to see over 20 touches of this game, and it's a fantastic matchup, so it's just going to be too hard to get away from. Okay, now if we were looking at this roster, I think that we were going to have to rate this roster probably as a B+, just terms of the talent that you have on it. But if we're talking about the process that you built it through by rostering all those high upside running backs and wide receivers on the bench, man, I love that process. I think this team could easily turn into an A+ team just a few weeks from now if we get a few breakouts from your bench running backs like a Jonathan Taylor, like a J.K. Dobbins, like a Cam Akers. All right, now thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. As always, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. I really hope y'all got something from this video, and I hope I will see y'all in the live stream tonight or tomorrow morning.